Welcome everyone, I'm Anthony Wilson, the Public Information Officer for the City of San Angelo. And today we're here to welcome you to our new Economic Development Director, Guy Andrews. Guy, thank you for being with us.
Thank you, Anthony. Appreciate your invitation to come and talk with folks.
Well, we're interested in learning all about you. You've had a long career in the field of economic development. Tell us a little bit about yourself professionally.
Okay, well, in economic development itself, I first became interested in that in 1995. So I've got about 23 years in economic development, but I've been blessed with a very long working career with lots of variety in my life, and kind of going through some of that is when I graduated from high school in Plainview, Texas. Well, my first career was as a court reporter. My first job as a court reporter was working for the FBI in Washington, D.C. This is when J. Edgar Hoover was director, so that kind of dates me. I got drafted while working for them and spent 3 years in the Army during Vietnam. Did a tour in Thailand during that time. And then my military career, well, after that I decided that I would go to college, actual college, so I started at Texas A&M in 1973 and graduated from that. Went to work after graduation for a company called Burroughs that no longer exists, selling computers and accounting machines. And then I went into my long career, which was 25 and a half years with Southwestern Bell, which has now evolved into what's now AT&T. I retired after 25 and a half years in 2004. Went to work for the city of Conroe in community development for 5 years. Then to Odessa to work in economic development for the Chamber of Commerce there. Went in to private industry just in time for the downturn in the oil field. So then went back into economic development in Brownwood, and then got blessed to come to San Angelo this past June, and hopefully this is the last stop.
Well, you mentioned that you've had a long career in the private sector. How do you think dealing with prospective businesses, having that background, will help you in order to bring new jobs and new industry to San Angelo?
I think it's important to understand perspective in large corporations, what they deal with and what they're actually looking for when they look for a new site. So all of that background has been helpful in just having a perspective, not just from the standpoint of the city or economic developers, but from private industry.
And I know this is a generalization, but what are they looking for? What do companies want whenever they're looking to either locate or relocate to a new community?
Well, that's sort of an evolving question, and I'm glad you asked that one, because going from an industrial age into information age, what they're looking for is changed over time, and so we're gradually evolving into that. And the most important thing is a skilled workforce. They're also looking for housing if they're bringing a workforce into the community, that sort of thing. A lot of people think it's about incentives, but that's really pretty far down on the chain. So if you have infrastructure, good speed telecommunications, if you got gigabyte telecommunications, well, employees can work anywhere in that atmosphere. So those are the top things they're looking for. Two universal problems, regardless of where you are in economic development, have to deal with skilled workforce and housing. And so those will be a couple of things we'll be looking at here.
And do you think San Angelo is well positioned when it comes to having a skilled workforce, having enough housing, and maybe having that technical infrastructure that companies may be looking for? We're
going to be working on all three of those aspects of it. With low unemployment, just having a skilled workforce is a situation that we need to deal with. Housing, we'll probably be doing a housing study to determine what those needs are. And then technologically, I think we have some good resources here. Typically, companies like to have redundancy in that, so there are others that are showing an interest in that, and so we'll be dealing with those aspects. So, but I think San Angelo's well positioned to address those issues, and they're quite aware what they are.
You mentioned that we have unemployment. In fact, it's one of the lowest unemployment rates in the entire state. Do you think that's because people are perhaps underemployed, or is that just sort of we have the right amount of jobs for the number of people that we have?
It's really sort of difficult to determine that. You can probably get down into the labor statistics and that sort of thing. I think a lot of it has to do right now with the oil boom. Again, just anecdotally, without looking at the data, I know a lot of people that will leave jobs to go into the oil field, especially welders and people in that, just because the pay's higher and that sort of thing. So, but those are things that we constantly look at and work with our workforce development board and trying to come up with solutions like that, and partner with Howard College and ASU to see if we can develop some of those skills and so that we can meet those needs.
You mentioned after 25 years with Southwestern Bell, you went to work for the city of Conroe down in the Houston area in community development. What initially spurred you to move from the private sector into the public sector?
Actually, it was sort of a fluke, to be truthful about it. After I retired, I was looking around. I knew the city administrator in Conroe. He asked me to apply for a job that I knew absolutely nothing about. Community development entails engineering and public works and building permitting and things like that. And the reason that they hired me for that job was they needed to change in that area. Nobody wanted to develop in Conroe because all the permitting and everything else in community development was very arbitrary and not well defined and that sort of thing. And so actually they were looking more from an organizational standpoint and the approach to the work process than actual engineering skills or things like that.
So what did you learn with that first foray into public service that you think is now serving you pretty well, especially in this new position?
Well, community development and economic development work hand in hand, and they have to. Community development can actually kill economic development faster than anything. If you recruit a company and they find it so onerous to do business and to get their business up and running here. We have to work closely together to make sure that we're doing the right things in those areas and that we're in lockstep as far as the community is concerned.
You've now been in the public sector for a number of years. What do you like about public service?
I'd like the servant aspect of it. It's, I think being in the public sector is a lot more difficult, especially if you're in management, because then everybody thinks that they know a better way to do things, and everybody wants to say, well, you got to operate like a business. And there are aspects of it that you do that you want to be fiscally responsible and that sort of thing, but it doesn't operate like a business as such. But I feel like it's a mission to be in public service and to be a servant to other people, so I find that exciting. I love to be able to see that something I've worked on has come to place and that it's added value to somebody's life, added value to the city.
So you didn't have a lot of people second guessing from the public what you were doing inside of Southwestern Bell when you worked for that company then, I suppose?
No, as a matter of fact, and when I worked for Southwestern Bell, the first 14 years of my career I spent in back office operations. I was in property and cost accounting. That's very exciting, and tongue-in-cheek on that one, and computer support and that sort of thing. And then in 1995, I was asked to be in external affairs, so that's when it really put me into the public light. But even at that point, you don't have people constantly monitoring, asking those questions.
What was it that drew you to this particular job and to San Angelo?
San Angelo, from perspective of just about anybody you talk to in the economic development arena, is just a great community. You have people that are willing to work together, not afraid to address issues, that sort of thing. there's almost a feel to a community that you get as you've been in economic development. San Angelo has a great feeling, and it's not one I can say is this, and that. It's a combination of things that says this is a great community. It has the right feel to it.
Is there anything in particular, either an asset that we have in our community or an industry that's out there that you think we're particularly well positioned to capitalize on?
Well, one of the exciting things I think that's going on now is the San Angelo Regional Manufacturers Alliance. SARMA is the name for that, where it brings manufacturers together, and they're actually very helpful in recruiting because they can talk to other manufacturers from a business standpoint where we as economic developers may not have a clue about what goes on inside that manufacturing deal. So that's a great asset to the community. The partnership with the Chamber of Commerce is a great one in that they're tasked with basically with going out and marketing and recruiting new businesses to there, while we're concentrated more on the business retention and expansion and other programs, but great partnerships.
We mentioned about low unemployment just a little while ago. Do you think we have an adequate number of workers here to accommodate any prospective businesses that come?
No, sir. The fact is we don't. Where you have opportunities to bring the workforce in, like we have with some recent folks that have come in, and actually a large portion of their workforce comes from Samoa, we welcome that as well, and that ties into the need for housing. So when you have low unemployment and you're bringing workers into the community, the housing aspect of it becomes very important. Those two work very much together.
I want to backtrack just for a second. You talked about the manufacturing jobs. I know you mentioned earlier that we're in an informational age right now, and so those manufacturing jobs, I suppose, are really at a premium. How does one go about, really in that dog-eat-dog world of economic development, bringing in those manufacturing jobs that everybody seems to want?
Well, I think that, one of the aspects of that is having, like I said, with the SARMA people talking to them. Manufacturing's not dead in Texas. There's a lot of that that's going on, so we have opportunities to do that. So we haven't completely switched over to where it's about the information economy. We're still a hybrid and sort of evolving into the information economy, but right now manufacturing is a very important aspect of what we recruit into the community. And those do tend to be good paying jobs.
Is there some synergy that you're looking for where maybe one manufacturer complements other manufacturers, perhaps in the same field, and they can sort of both supply different sort of parts to an end user?
We have that type of synergy going on, but we also have it where you have a manufacturer that's involved in an industry that's not totally related to the new industry that's coming in, but some of the skills that they have in that, and one of them would be involved in aircraft engine manufacturing, for example, and the partners that they're partnering with are actually dealing with oil field type equipment and that sort of thing. So you just never know where those synergies are taking place. It's very critical, though, to have those connections and to be able to have like expertise among the manufacturers.
You mentioned that the city has a very close working relationship when it comes to economic development with our Chamber of Commerce. Explain to our viewers what the role of each of those entities is. What is the city responsible for, and what is the Chamber responsible for?
Right. Chamber is primarily tasked with marketing, economic development, recruiting new businesses into the area, whereas the city portion of that, the City of San Angelo Development Corporation, or COSA DC, deals with business retention, expansion, and sort of the overall administration of the programs to make sure that we're developing the right type of agreements that provide a return on investment for our community, as well as make sure it's a good fit overall into our economy. They're there are probably businesses out there that we don't want to recruit because they don't fit with San Angelo. And so just going out and trying to recruit anything in the world is a bad strategy, because you might get something that is, you know, the economy here doesn't really like or need. It's not a good deal.
Well, you mentioned what businesses are looking for in a community. What are we looking for in a business?
We want one that's sustainable. We want people that aren't just coming in to grab an incentive and maybe be here till they get a better deal someplace. So a business that's sustainable. We like people to get to know them, to make sure, you know, we've got integrity. We do an awful lot of background checks and that type of information on them. We want people that will participate in the community, not just what's in it for them, but also be an integral part of the Chamber of Commerce and other organizations to help support the community. We want people to really, like I've done, is mentally unpack when you get to San Angelo and know that this is the place you want to live and do business.
You mentioned about the economic incentives, and of course one of the key roles of the Development Corporation is to administer those half-cent sales tax for economic development. Talk about some of the incentives that are available that we might offer a company who is looking to locate and bring their jobs here.
Right. The types of incentives really, as we talk to each prospect, we like to let them tell us what they're looking for. They're, by law, in the local government codes for our type of economic development organization, there's some definitions about what we can and can't do. And so there are different incentives available, but it could be for infrastructure, for adding employees, capital investment, or something that we're also looking for so that we can provide incentives in that regard. We can also work with the city to provide 380 agreements, which can be a wide variety of things. And 380 just refers to a chapter in the local government code, Chapter 380, that allows us to do some things that help incentivize businesses and help them get started and to be sustainable here.
And with those incentives, as you mentioned, it's not necessarily just for businesses that are coming into our community, but it's for existing businesses that are looking either to expand, or we're looking to retain that business because they may be looking at another community. So talk about the efforts to retain and expand businesses and the right mix between those efforts and recruiting new businesses.
Right. The Business Retention and Expansion Program, we'll call it BREP, is a program that is designed to where we go out for businesses that want to expand in the area, or we want to retain them. They're thinking about moving out for different reasons. We can provide incentives to them. It's much easier to retain a business that's here than to go recruit a new one. So we have a heavy emphasis on that, and are continuing to advertise that so people are aware of what's going on. The mix in that, I think, really depends. It's all about timing. Sometimes you might have a flood of people, prospects that you want to recruit here. And in other seasons, you may have more emphasis on people that have decided to expand and that sort of thing. So it kind of takes care of itself, the mixture. We're really sort of opportunist in economic development. We lay out plans of work, but we want to be flexible enough where whenever an opportunity presents itself that we're able to respond to that and act accordingly.
Well, I want you to talk about one of those opportunities that you had in Brownwood. Some might call it a challenge, where you had a facility that was sort of vacant, unused, sitting fallow, and you found a really good use for it. I want you to sort of brag about what you were able to do there in that community to rejuvenate that facility and make it useful and full of life for the community again.
Well, sometimes it's not us that's so much involved in that. We're connectors. We like to make connections to people that can do it. And I can think of one particular business there that was agriculture related, and with the downturn in agriculture, was really struggling. At the same time, we had a prospect that came in that's looking for a facility where they could manufacture oil field related products. And by just connecting those people, they were able to make the deal and convert the agriculture into that. So, you know, those opportunities, again, it's an opportunity that happens to arise, and we just have to respond to it. But that's an example from Brownwood days, right?
Mayor Brenda Gunter has made economic development a keystone of her time in office. How big of a difference does it make to your job creation efforts when you have the support of a key leader like the mayor?
Absolutely essential. A mayor can make or break economic development, and I think historically you may have seen some of that where a mayor may have made a statement that said, we don't want that type of business, even though, you know, in the mix of things that might have actually been a good business. So I think we have very proactive leadership from the mayor and council and other organizations that is aggressively pursuing economic development opportunities, but at the same time looking and making sure that that's a good mix for San Angelo and that we're not just running crazy, because especially with the oil field, we're going to have opportunities to bring people in. And I can tell you that there's some oil field businesses I think that you want to have, and others that maybe you need to take a second look at that as well. So.
And that gets back to the sustainability that you were talking about earlier?
Sustainability, you know, somebody told me when I was in Odessa working in economic development, with every boom there's a bust, and I didn't believe that. It looked like the last one, 2011 to 2014, was going to go on forever. Those guys are wise out there and that sort of thing. So, yeah, you have to really look at the sustainability. And there are aspects of the oil field business, manufacturing, service, that are very sustainable, good businesses. Other aspects that are a bit dirty and transient. Use caution when you're dealing with that.
Mayor Gunter has talked about converting much of the property at the airport to an industrial park, and San Angelo already has one industrial park right now. What do you foresee the role of each of those facilities being moving forward?
Yeah, this is a pretty exciting time for the airport development, and let me talk about that one first, because our airport looks a bit stark as it is now. While we've got great facilities out there, it would be nice, like you see in other airports, to come in and have businesses surrounding the airport, especially ones that would easily utilize the services of the airport. And that's what normally attracts them, people that are doing air freight shipping, some light manufacturing, things that are related to that. In our industrial park, that's more geared to, it could be heavy industrial, more heavy industrial, or other aspects of manufacturing. I mean, it can be things such as, you know, the folks that are doing LED lighting and things of that nature. So, and not really relying on the air services as much, but they both play a role in it. I'm actually I'll leave on Sunday to go to San Diego for a 2-day public-private partnership meeting on airports, and hope to make some contacts there that will aid us in our efforts in developing the airport.
You've only been on the job as the city's economic development director for a very short time, a couple of months. How long do you anticipate it's going to be before you get fully up to speed in your new position?
Well, that's a very good question. When I did my job interview, one of the things I promised that I would not come in and try to fix something that's not broken, that I would spend more time listening and that sort of thing, and seeing what is it that leadership of the community wants. You know, I might have a few ideas to share with the community, but ultimately it's the community and the leadership that's driving that. So It really depends. It's hard to set a time for it. I'd say at least 6 months of listening and maybe longer. But don't expect me to or put the burden on me to go out and recruit Toyota to San Angelo. That's probably not going to happen for a variety of reasons. But we will be aggressively pursuing any opportunity that comes up and going after individuals that we think will be good for San Angelo.
And I know you can never share too many details because you don't want to raise expectations, and sometimes the businesses that you're dealing with, want a level of confidentiality. But can you say whether there are projects and prospects in the pipeline currently?
We actually have quite a few that are in different stages that have expressed an interest that we're working with. Some pretty exciting prospects in a variety of industries that I think are going to work well. And so I will tell you, some of it is oil field related on the manufacturing side. Some of it is manufacturing and aviation side of the house. So that's about all I can say about that at this point in time. But if people want to know, is there something going on, or are you guys sitting on your hands or what? There's a lot going on in San Angelo.
Do you have any expectation about when the next announcement may be of jobs coming to San Angelo?
I would think on probably one of the hotter prospects, potentially within 3 to 4 months.
Very good. So if people want to learn more about the economic incentives, perhaps they are a local entrepreneur, or they have an idea about starting up a business or something of that nature, what's the best way for them to get in contact with the Economic Development Department?
They can call us directly, and if it's not in our bailiwick, we will try to get them to the right people. But my telephone number is 325-653-7197, and we'll be glad to help direct that traffic. That's what we do if we answer the questions. We're right across in the Business Resource Center from the Small Business Development Center. Great resources there. We're connected through partnership with the Chamber and the Workforce Development Board, ASU, and anybody involved in the community. Now, one of the things I'm about to start, and if someone would like to stay informed about what's going on in economic development, I'm about to start an email database, and if you want to contact me and get added to that database, and I'd love to have you there. And the whole idea behind that is I'd like to make everybody in our community that has any interest in seeing San Angelo progress and be a thriving community to become an economic development director, and that's sharing information. We're open and transparent about what we do. We don't try to hide anything we do. We're accountable multiple ways and to multiple agencies for what we do and the decisions we make. We're open and honest about that, and so whatever I can share so that as you as an individual have contacts that I could never touch, that I don't even know about, you can share that information with them, and that's really kind of what economic development is about, is connecting people, sharing information, making San Angelo the type of place that people want to do business and live and enjoy life.
And we want to point out to our viewers that on our website we have a tab specifically for businesses. We also have a page dedicated to our Economic Development Department, so we encourage you to visit that. And we also hope you'll join us for the next episode of The City.